MycoTV.
When you were here before, couldn't look you in the eye. You're just like an angel.
When I listen to that song, it really makes me feel like I'm part of something larger.
It's just a song that seems so universal, and I have no idea how many teenagers who are like in pain have listened to that song. You don't feel as lonely, you don't feel like an island in your suffering. You're kind of part of something bigger.
But I'm a creep.
But the fact that we're still singing this song makes me feel like the world's not a better place. And I thought, like, if we all got together or we performed some sort of movement together, we could make the world a better place and use that song to connect all of us.
And that's something that I really resonate with. That's a goal and a project that I'd really want to be part of.
You should join the Shy Resistance movement then.
I'd love to.
I want you to notice when I'm not around. You're so fucking special. I wish I was special, but I'm a creep. I'm a widow. What the hell am I doing here? I don't belong here. I don't belong here.
A whole zine subculture has come into being under quarantine. There are so many zines now called Quarantine. I myself contributed to a zine called Quarantine about tips for artists and curators by a group called Mad COVID, which you can find online. And they were looking at how people who'd experienced forms of psychiatric oppression or had been hospitalised also had a deeper understanding and things to teach people on the outside. And so I contributed to a zine about tips for artists and curators in lockdown. I've been part of British zine culture since the last 25 years. I used to curate a festival called DIY Cultures, which is one of the UK's biggest zine and activist fairs that went international. These are some of the zines I made, the Jinnah papers, some of the zines I published. This one's about Egypt, and zines about Muslim subcultures such as Radical, a pun, and Radical and Bradford. And so there's been a whole zine culture. Zines I distribute, like A is for Asperger's, and then other zines, mental health zines I collect, Don't Want to Be Alone, zines about the South Asian Black Panthers. The artist Jeremy Deller did this project called The Utices of Literacy about the Manic Street Preachers cult following. I was one of those obsessive fans. I had to own anything with Richie James's Edwards image at the front. It was the first time publicly someone had talked about self-harm, depressive episodes, self-destruction, and a man who looked quite emaciated. He disappeared in 1995, but he remains someone who leaves an indelible influence on my life. To me, the influences and the interviews I do, they're just as important as my studio practice. And that's something totally influenced by Richie James Edwards. I'm vulnerable, I speak openly. I know other people will empathise and find common cause. This was a song that changed my life. The immortal words, I am stronger than Mensa, Miller and Mailer. I spat out Plath and Pinter. I am the truth that washes, that learnt how to spell. I am all the things that you regret. I listened to this album more than any other album in my life, and it continued to influence me. All of this collection here, I bought in quarantine. I thought of being a quarantine curator. Stay Beautiful, Motorcycle Emptiness, You Love Us, Little Baby Nothing, From Despair to Where, Roses in the Hospital. I'm in my late 30s, but I'm reconnecting with this period of my life. I was sent home from a residency in Ljubljana. My Italian tour was cancelled, my Norway tour was cancelled. Corona had struck, it was deadly. And I was sent back home to London, which rapidly became the most dangerous place, the highest deaths per capita in the whole of the UK, in the whole of Europe, in the whole of the world. Highest now of excess deaths. It was astonishing. And yet, I was in Ljubljana, the safest place in the world. I remember the year 1994 vividly. It was a year of Britpop. I don't listen to the albums from that era anymore. What happened to Blur's Park Life? Or Definitely Maybe. But I revisit the Holy Bible again and again and again through these various periods of my life. I got into zine culture. I made my own zine called Nausea. I was part of this subculture of 1990s Manic Street Preacher zines, which have disappeared into oblivion. There's no archive which stores this stuff. There's no library. What would it be classified under? National heritage? I feel in some ways rockstar fandom is a way to gather people who may have the same neurotribe or mental health problems. This was Nausea, the fanzine I edited. A Manic Street Preachers inspired fanzine. with iconography from punk and a William Burroughs quote to go with it. Young, Pretty Fucked. Manic Street Preachers fanzine. Tranquilized Icons. The Fallen Angel, which had been Ritchie. I saw a lot of Manic Street Preachers fanzine and their mythology after Ritchie. You meet kids in their early 20s and they're nostalgic for this period in the early 90s which they never actually lived through. You see icons of Brett Anderson and Jarvis Cocker. I suppose it's a time when music was more real. I mean, who do you have today? Like Pete Doherty of the Libertines, who slags off Manic Street Preachers fans. I mean, if only he was half as literate or interesting or beautiful as Ritchie was. La Teresa Durara, Scream to a Sigh, Misery Will Last Forever, something Van Gogh wrote before he destroyed himself. Declared by the Shy Radicals movement, the global movement for introverts around the world, the revolutionary movement of introverts, that there'll be a UNESCO year of cultural appreciation of the sensitive white man. The sensitive white man has a universal gift for humanity. His cultural talent for singing of angst, depression, melancholia and woe is universally appreciated across people and borders. Even groups among the marginalised and subaltern relate to him. Hence we see the Morrissey and Smith fans in the Latino slums and ghettos of Los Angeles. Listen to the pain of Kurt Cobain, the glacial bleakness of Ian Curtis, the fragility of Elliott Smith between the acoustic strums, the erudite isolation of the Manic Street Preachers Ritchie Edwards, the depressive witticism of Leonard Cohen's. Even in genres such as black metal is to be found an articulation of this depressive underblanket in a thick form. We had to reach a conclusion: no one does this better. This is the realm of mastery of the sensitive white man. There's one name mentioned there, who's also a member of this illustrious club called the 27 Club, and has a t-shirt with the usual icons: Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Jim Morrison, Kurt Cobain, Amy Winehouse, Brian Jones. But of all of them, the one that means the most to me, has the biggest influence in my life, is the amazing Ritchie James Edwards. And I could just look at pictures of him all day. Something just so compelling and fascinating and captivating and beautiful. This was a man, like, at the time of Lagerlouts and the Lad Mag, was speaking very openly about his problems with eating disorders and depression and hospitalisation publicly, in a way you could identify, in which you weren't necessarily pathologising yourself, but you could identify it within yourself in a non-clinical way. Like, what did this stuff mean? What did this suffering mean? And even to this day, so you have these Manic Street Preacher scenes. This is just a new one. In a photo edition, and what beautiful, it just came out last year. He couldn't actually play guitar, but he used to pose with one. And there's something even in that, like, I'm too incompetent to even use Final Cut to make a decent video. I have this sense of, like, imposter syndrome. And recently there's just been all these books that have come out. His sister did a book. He still believes he's missing and not dead, and hence not a member of the 27 Club. But this book, Richard, which is Imagine's first-person novel, sometimes written in second person, it's an amazing piece of, like, archival creativity. Like, he takes all these things, like what the charts were at the time, what stuff was trending in the 1990s, the books Richard read, and he's constructed this first-person narrative, which sometimes goes into second person. And this man's also in his late 30s, like me. Like, what do your late teens, your teeny music that you like, mean today? Like, all the angst and, like, why is it still so relatable? We just released a cover version of Creep by Radiohead, by a young singer called Arlo Parks, who started her career at the age of 19 and still is only 20. And she sings about these very low moods. I mean, she's not a sensitive white man from Oxford. She's not Tom York. And she gives it a whole new layer of subtext and meaning, like what these words might mean. I mean, there's still more beautiful pictures of Richie. But this whole book here, it's by Picador, but it looks like it's even got like comments from the Sun. And it looks like a paperback novel but it's actually an incredible piece of like conceptual art that looks at the locations he went to in Thailand and Wales and London and recreates this narrative, this 400-page narrative, and it really echoes some of the forms of self-loathing that I have had as a sort of man in my late 30s, feelings of inadequacy, the self-doubt. If I saw Richie James Edward on a cover magazine, I would just have to buy it from the age of 13. And that still continued when they re-released an album called Journal for Plague Lovers. Nat Raha here, amazing trans woman poet. Her lyrics are cut-ups of Richie James Edwards' lyrics. And so I recommend you get this book to see how it's been reinvented. And this only came out a few years ago. So it shows how this sort of wave and like current of influence goes across generations. Look, all sign, Motorcycle Emptiness wasn't that the greatest teen angst song ever written. Actually, this was going to be one of the soundtracks for the film. We just stuck with Radiohead because they gave us permission, and we only have so much budget. But still, like, there's just one name missing. Even I just got this recently. It's like these big coffee table books. Like, oh dear. I think it's not just like, I mean, even this, like, I'm wearing this now, right? Holy Bible era Manic Street Preachers. And the costumes in the film, which you might see in the trailer of Shy Radicals, I was thinking the same. Costumes of, like, the Manics. Like, profound. This is him surrounded by skulls in a boiler suit. Just how much the echo influence is, again, in the, like, very look of the Shy Radicals. 1990s, 1994. I mean, that was such a profound year for me. I first started having like depressive symptoms. I first had what you'd call suicidal ideation. I became an atheist at 13, and then I've left atheism in my mid-20s, so I'm an ex-atheist and a proud ex-atheist. But my sort of heart with Richie sort of still stayed. It's still current in terms of how I perceive the world, in terms of goodness. And just left this indelible mark still to this day. La Teresa de Herrera. Sadness will last forever.
Introvert Emergency Rescue Hotline. Introvert in a crisis? Join the Shy Radicals movement by sharing your grievances at the hands of the extrovert supremacist state, on the Introvert Emergency Rescue Hotline, the anonymous service for sharing introvert stories in an extrovert world. The voice messages will form a part of a documentary that is being made about Hamja Ahsan, the author of the satirical manifesto Shy Radicals. Our hope is to receive messages that convey the shared experiences of introverted peoples. Please be aware that by leaving your message you are consenting to its use in the Black Dog Films, BFI Doc Society documentary Shy Radicals. You have the right to walk away. Please call the number below to participate. +447 538 638 260.
Jesus. Really reflecting on how much the entire nature of freelance artist life just makes you sick. It's like you have a dozen different bosses at once, located in a dozen different countries. And they're all nagging this way and that way, and it's just like you have this pylon for like admin from Poland to fill in all these forms, and then it's like Netherlands, like you have like deadlines, writing deadlines, and then you have to make a video. Like, so I can't describe how horrible it is. Like every other week you feel mentally sick. Like, it's one thing when you're not doing something you want to do, and then it's something you're doing what you want to do. There's these impossible demands, and usually I just give up commissions or things which I earn my living through just feeling unwell. I think once I got this Aziz Foundation grant, I just had to just let it go. I had to fly, I had to do something to Slovenia. I'm supposed to be in Poland, have a big exhibition opening. God, there's lots of stuff. I can't describe any things I have to do at once. The film soundtrack just dropped on us, the record company, without much consultation. The song's really beautiful, and it's got such... People are obviously really touched by it. I'm really thankful to Arlo for it. I'm still in residency at Jan van Eyck Academy. It's just... this deluge of stuff is making me really sick. It's so difficult to cope with it all. It's exhausting every single day. Like, you have weekends and leisure times. You have a time when the office closes. Like, I don't. It's like your head, every synapse of your head and your ears and your eyes is the office. When you don't have this distinct thing between like pleasure and leisure and work and strain, and this pressure to always be excellent or do something creatively brilliant or witty or insightful, like again and again and again, like day after day. I've got a deferred deadline of a thing I was supposed to write about art schools. The Netherlands. I had to defer it because I felt sick at earlier points. Sometimes galleries create sickness for you. I had troubles with Tate Modern. They've written an apology to me for some shit, like some non-consensual shit they did with me. And like, I've got an apology from the head of Tate Exchange. Why I'm in Tate Exchange, I'm not like a community artist. Like, it's just exhausting. I think Tai Shani was the only high profile artist. I'm not her level, I'm younger than her. He's complained about the sort of nature of artists' pay. I am a full-time artist and writer, that is my profession. People are like, what do you do? But it really isn't like living the dream at all. The travelling's nice. And you do have people that admire what you do. But the actual way... I could work until Saturday, Sunday. I could work till 10 or 11. And then every part of your leisure becomes... Just look at this mess in this room. So it's making this... Look at it. It's just embarrassing. And then the pile of shit and stuff I haven't read. This is for my installation in... I've never had an artist studio. And I would have had one if I could move to Jan van Eyck Academy. Maybe that's a problem. Just enters into your bedroom and sitting in the car on my own is like... oh dear. I've lost money and cancelled lots of things, hundreds of pounds of money, but I think if I got sick or despondent or disabled or distressed, which is at risk every week, then like I wouldn't be in any fit state to do anything. Just finding yourself back in that state is horrible. I'm really not. The film was dropped on us, the trailer and stuff. Like, there's stuff to do, we have to do things. Like, I think the filmmakers, the director's under pressure. He's doing the at Shy Radicals film account. There's a letter from Radiohead, which is quite amusing to read. Oh, God. Maybe I should just go on. That's why people go on holidays. I never understood that concept. I was going to go in Slovenia, but like not doing any work, just like going to enjoy the beautiful landscapes. And that's it. Like, no art, no residency. Just go early in July and it'd be lovely in summer. Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, bloody hell. I guess I can go to sleep.
For the Muslim community in Britain, of which my family is a part, it's the holy month of Ramadan, when the Quran was revealed, our holy book, and so my father is fasting during this period. My mother is praying even more. There's something about the conditions of Muslims which could teach all of us about how to cope during these times. The remembrance of patience, sabir, and gratitude, of seeing God's bounty in everything, even the smallest, everyday, banal things. But there's something about the period of oppression, of the war on terror, where we had people in control orders or detained without trial, of which my brother was one. My brother was one of the longest detained without trial British citizens. 6.5 years living in uncertainty, detained without trial in Belmarsh and Long Lartin in group isolation, and then solitary confinement in a death row prison. He's been 3 since 2014. For marginal association with a website about the conflicts in Bosnia, Chechnya and Afghanistan, obsolete at the time of his arrest. He was treated brutally, but he carried himself with a sort of dignity at a daily level. When you're in solitary confinement, you're stuck in a room the size of a bathroom with no human contact apart from strip searches. 1 hour to run around in a cage. The people in these extreme forms of oppression can teach us about how to be better humans. So during this period of time, we've seen human rights groups publish material about prisoners and those under control orders, and even those who, in the Irish Troubles, suffered internment and were the worst forms of seclusion, and the way in which they coped, built communities, created strength. And they're teaching me things today. So I'm reconnecting with some of the material of when I used to campaign against solitary confinement, when I used to speak for the 30,000 people on hunger strike in California who are against indefinite solitary confinement, or the 80,000 people in solitary confinement in the US, for the prisoners in Guantanamo Bay who I befriended and campaigned for. These people have so much to teach us. And in some ways, what we experience now is what people in Gaza and Kashmir and oppressed zones, military zones, stuck in lockdown, where lockdown means daily life, where lockdown means oppressed nations, subjugated, controlled under militarized zones. They know how to cope with the most bare essentials. They know how to express gratitude towards love and humanity whilst experiencing the worst forms of oppression. So these people are my teachers. I've also contributed towards the zine culture which has sprung up during the time. It's Red Over the Land. It's the longest running Liverpool football fanzines, sold outside of Anfield, where we had the last football match. 50,000 people, some from Madrid, and I hate to think how many people died. So this is the isolation issue, a football fanzine written in isolation for people in isolation. Football fanzines under Thatcher was where many of the people campaigned for truth, for the Hillsborough Justice campaign, which is another one of my projects. And not having the routine of football week in, week out. That's also radically changed my life. So I just made a podcast called When Saturday Never Comes about football under the coronavirus. Why do we let these 50,000 people hold a football match at the time of the pandemic with thousands of people coming from Madrid, the place which was a hotspot? Watching that in Slovenia, it was absurd. I knew horrible things were going to happen in England. This laissez-faire attitude, it was really not something that was tolerable. The anniversary of Hillsborough on the 15th of April happened, and usually we all gather outside the monument by the Hillsborough Justice campaign and speak with the families and sing You'll Never Walk Alone. And I do that, and I travel to Liverpool. And that's one of my art projects, and that's on a hiatus. But this COVID-19 pandemic, it's like Hillsborough times 1,000. And we can see the state and the government neglecting people, but we can also see the resilience of people coming together, of people seeking truth and answers, of people who really care about public welfare. And let's emerge stronger at the end of this once-in-a-generation pandemic. Stay strong, and thanks for listening. At Shy Radicals.
Extrovert Emergency Rescue Hotline. Extrovert in a crisis? Struggling with life in lockdown? Shy Radicals and the Introvert Alliance offer aid and support during this global pandemic. Please leave your messages of personal distress from quarantine on the Extrovert Emergency Hotline. The Shy People's Republic of Aspergistan is listening. Please call the number below to participate. +44 07984 402 443.
MycoTV.
What follows is a list of instructions or recipes for the preparation of fermented and pickled foods. Fecund viriditas. A crude copper knife slices across the dried stomach of the goat. As you sleep, it breathes. As you wake, it is larger than before, growing, creeping. Coagulation takes place when the milk proteins configure themselves into a lattice to which minerals, sugars and fats naturally found in milk attach themselves. I pour a pail of milk into a large saucepan and warm it to the edge of a rolling boil, running a spatula across the bottom of the pan, softly brushing as a feather upon an etching plate dipped into acid. We come to praise the non-human encounter, the mascotta seething beneath the warm weight of summer. Yogurt probably emerged as a serendipity of nomadic life, one of the world's earliest fermented foods. I pour the heated milk into a sturdy jar and allow it to cool to 43 degrees centigrade. I dip my finger in, verboten by the fermenter's creed, and wonder how such precision could be managed pre-Pasteur. The daily production of yogurt must have built an almost intuitive understanding of temperature. How hot beneath the saddlebags. In my kitchen, a series of bacteria are consuming sugars. The side effect is the preservation of foodstuffs without refrigeration. These are our victuals. I drop the jar of scalded milk, sealed, with some bacteria, into a water bath at exactly 43 degrees Celsius. I leave it to sit there for 5 hours. At that temperature, lactic acid is produced by the consumption of milk sugars by the bacterial strains of Streptococcus thermophilus and Lactobacillus bulgaricus. a slightly effervescent fermentation for the natural yeasts found upon elderflower, fed with sugar, produces a light, sweet, delightful champagne. It's the lactic acid, alongside other fermentation byproducts, which produces the unique taste of fermented milks and yogurts. I become suddenly stricken with a terror of ingesting the road bacteria Clostridium botulinum that can form on incorrectly prepared foodstuffs. Tomorrow, I will strain the fermented milk to produce a thick and fatty Greek yogurt. This straining process separates the yogurt from the thin whey protein. By feeding the whey protein with more sugar, you can preserve vegetables without the use of vinegar. I add my whey to lemonade to produce a highly carbonated, refreshing, and full-bodied drink. I imagine taking a pickled egg from a jar and eating it alone in my kitchen, and the rogue spores releasing inside me. I'm struck by a sudden horror of my own foodstuffs. The lockjaw, paralysis, death. I lick my fingers, and I hope.
Echo you legend soul, who with endless vague tears, darkness, trouble, painful door, and misery, street for your years, flash form, burned up, were waving at hands, like the stand of these. Those who err an endless flight, you will control. You.
Nothing wins and like absent. Ignore measure, ignore dose, ignore messages, ignore cute, word telling. Nothing wins and like absent. Think of silence, but silence. As M says, grain. T'as un grain, in which language does not crazy means lazy. Sourd de là. Ne passe plus au beau milieu de la société, passe au beau milieu de chacune. Dans chaque milieu, ce qui déjà lui échappe. Follow the thought and flight. Déjà là, déjà en mouvement, déjà échappe. When you say have, I hear. over our wonder. Différentes façons de voir les choses selon là où on se trouve. Entre désir et immobilité. Désir is moving. Tremblant pourtant sans arrêt. Ajouter du jaune au ciel, and I come next. Qu'elle était en vie ou qu'elle était vivante. Perhaps alive or living. Un petit bout d'avant, je vais commencer sur la carcasse de la vache. À part ça, quelques modes de terre. Allez mourir dans le désert. Allez mourir de rire. Painting the desert in your head. Peindre le désert dans sa tête, tu prêches solo. Prêcher dans le désert. C'était when I learned to stop thinking. Quand j'apprendrai à arrêter de penser. Aucune idée moi-même. Dear reader, tu aimes aussi regarder des vidéos de mug meals? Stop thinking. Nothing went and like absent. On peut garder la fourche où la route se sépare en deux. Carcasse à demi dévorée d'une vache, un chemin le long des côtes, lit desséché de rivières, and more.